maðurinn sem dó smánardauða. Þér hefur verið veitt tækifæri til að breyta örlögum þínum. Sannaðu þig fyrir goðunum og öðlastu inngöngu í Valhalla. Uppgötvaðu leyndardóma Ginnungagaps. Bindu földu rúnirnar. Þýgðu blessanir goðanna og sigraðu hina máttugu jötna. Þóra, auðvirðulegi bardagamaður, ekki mistakast að ávinna þér hillu goðanna.
Hi, everyone. I hope we're live now. If we're not live, that's going to not be fun. But anyway, the long and short is that I have the esteemed pleasure to talk to Will Dubé of Thunder Lotus Games, and he recently proved to me that you can actually do a Kickstarter game and release it on time. That's right. Yeah. It went through Kickstarter, was successful, and actually released on time. But here's the quick version of it. The game is called Jotun. It is a hand-drawn action exploration game set in Norse mythology where you play a Viking warrior who died an inglorious death and must now prove herself to the gods to enter Valhalla. Will, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to join us today.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. So first off, you're not a huge team, but my God, I can't say it enough. This game is absolutely beautiful. From what I understand, you guys are a small team. How many people are actually on your team right now?
So at the peak, towards the end of production, there were 14 of us total working on the game, 10 full-time, and then people, writer, sound effects, music, and trailers and stuff like that, rounding out the team. Now we've shrunk back down a little bit. A lot of that was contract work, and right now there are 5 of us.
Wow. So what was the inspiration to this game? I mean, first off, why Norse mythology? Are you a big history buff? Is that kind of where this came from?
I've always liked old stories like Beowulf or the Divine Comedy, and in the research for finding out what the game was going to become, when I stumbled upon Norse mythology and started reading the stories, they're just so freaking cool and relatively unexplored. So I thought it was like the perfect universe for a video game.
Awesome. And the decision to be totally hand-drawn, very, very, very wonderful decision for this game. What was kind of the impetus behind that?
Well, the main thing is that that I know some really great 2D artists. I'm lucky enough to have these people who joined the team, really, and then for them it was kind of their style and how the kind of art they enjoyed and the kind of art I enjoy as well. I grew up on Disney movies, obviously, and that was a huge influence. So we were just glad to be able to kind of replicate that style in games.
You pretty much nailed it, I think. But before you did the Kickstarter, you were a mobile developer. So first off, tell me kind of what got you into mobile development and what took you from mobile development to making this game.
So in 2011, I completed a Bachelor of Computer Science and Computation Arts from Concordia University here in Montreal. And I was lucky enough to get a job as game designer right out of school, which was at Savage Transmedia, the mobile game company, where I stayed for 2.5 years. That was a really great experience because it was a startup that was founded by AAA veterans getting into the mobile space, kind of when the whole mobile is great buzz was happening back then. And I learned a lot. I learned a ton, both on the business side as how to develop games, the whole production cycle, all of that. And then in January of 2014, last year, I quit my job to put an indie PC game on Kickstarter, and that's what led to Jotun.
Well, what specific? When was the point where you thought, man, I'm really tired of doing mobile games. I want to do a standalone. I think now is the time. What was the kind of push that got you to that? Because doing a game is one thing. Doing a Kickstarter to market it yourself and then releasing it, that's a huge undertaking.
Yeah, well, I think it's many different factors, but one of them is that I've always known I wanted to be an entrepreneur, to start a business. I've always loved games as well, obviously, and worked in games and studied games and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a convergence of a lot of different factors. But um, for me, Thunder Lotus and Jotun is really about creating a sustainable studio. That's like our goal. That's the goal is not just to put out Jotun and to move on, or to go to make games. Of course, we want to make games, but we want to have a studio that actually can support itself, and that we can continue making our original IPs like Jotun and continue building on these ideas.
Okay. Well, we'll get to talking about Jotun in just a minute. I do have a couple more boring questions, specifically about the Kickstarter process, because there are a lot of people that watch the channel. A lot of them want to get into development, and a lot of them tend to like Kickstarter because that basically means that anybody could do this, but it takes a lot of work behind the scenes just to get to Kickstarter. So, would you do it again? First off,
Absolutely, we would 100% go to Kickstarter
knowing what
again.
you know now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a huge amount of work, and like what you said about the fact that anyone can do it, it's true. Like anyone can do a Kickstarter campaign, and with better tools, anyone can make video games now, which I think is great. Which also brings, however, like additional challenges, right? Because now the space it gets more crowded, and there are more games. You have more competition. It's harder to differentiate yourself. All of those different things. But I think that it kind of depends too what you want to do. If you just want to make games and that's it, and the business side doesn't interest you, then maybe starting your own indie studio doesn't make that much sense. Maybe you should just be making games, and that's fine too. You could just make games and have a great time and build amazing games. For us, it was really about the business as well, and obviously Kickstarter. Kickstarter is just a phenomenal tool for not only to get the initial funds you need to get the project going, but also for market validation. Do people actually want to play this game? To see how people react to it, to get feedback, is so important. And Kickstarter, yeah, it's a huge marketing effort, but you also get a lot of marketing out of it as well. Like it's this big event, it's this very exciting event too, and we would definitely go to Kickstarter again.
So aside from the market value, essentially getting people to be your own focus group. I mean, what were some of the biggest pros about the whole process compared to how traditional games are released, or compared to how it used to be, where you would make a game and then you'd throw it out there and hope for the best, prepare for the worst. You know, what were some of the other pluses and minuses? I mean, what were the worst parts of the process?
The worst parts about Kickstarter is probably just the amount of time you need to put into it. Like during the campaign is 30 days. 30 days is a long time, and you're basically going, 18 hours a day nonstop for those 30 days. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, because you have to look at all the preparation and all the research you have to do before getting to Kickstarter. What are my rewards? How much can I actually ask for? What's realistic? And then you have to learn how to pitch your game. You have to do the pitch video. You have to get some art together. You have to get the whole concept there. So this a huge amount of work. I mean, I quit my job in January 2014, and I was mostly full-time on Jotun until the Kickstarter went live at the end of July. Obviously, there was a lot of people who helped. I had a lot of help from friends. I worked with some contractors as well, getting everything together. Let's just say I owe a lot of favors to a lot of people for their help with the Kickstarter campaign. But yeah, it's an enormous amount of work, but the pros definitely outweigh the cons, in my opinion.
Yeah, and those favors were certainly worthwhile. I mean, out of a $50,000 goal, you guys raised nearly 65,000, or 64,265. So not only did you hit the goal, but you surpassed it. I mean, that has to be a wonderful feeling to know that not only do people support this, but enough people support it to go beyond what you originally asked for. I mean, how did you come to that number, 50,000, to start with?
Kickstarter is a very psychological platform where people are very much influenced on perception and on different factors. The 50K goal for us, it was many things. The first thing was we figured that we couldn't ask for anything less than that because one of the goals of our Kickstarter campaign was to prove the concept and to gain credibility out of the campaign. If Kickstarter hadn't succeeded, then we wouldn't have made the game. Like I would have had to go find a job and build up my reserves again, and then try again later on down the line. But yeah, I mean, it was a very, very important for us.
And so again, like I mentioned earlier, not only did you release the game, not only did you hit your goal, not only did you surpass it, but you actually released it on time. And of course, we're all familiar with the fact that most Kickstarter games, they suffer from bloat or they suffer from delays. What was it? Is it something about your past history of working as a mobile developer already? Did that help you kind of decide, okay, this is the timetable, we're going to stick to this, we're not going to deviate? I mean, was that what helped make it happen?
Yeah, it was several things. One of the things is definitely experience. Experience definitely helps there. You have a better idea of scope and how to manage scope and all that. One thing to note is that as soon as the Kickstarter finished, that's when we started putting the team together. But we knew that we were already late for September. We knew that we were extremely tight, and that it was going to be a very, very difficult, a huge challenge for us to get to September 2015, like right from the get-go. We knew it was very, very aggressive. But at the same time, what we did was we were able to leverage Kickstarter money into other financing sources, notably from the Canadian government. So, I mean, that was in the plan from the start, was to use Kickstarter money as financial leverage to be able to go get more money. And then this additional money obviously allowed us to get up to 14 people at the end of production there, because there's no way there's no, like, $50,000 is one person's salary for a year. It's just not at all. It doesn't, like, Kickstarter is not a development budget. It does not reflect development budgets, and on as much on small scale projects as on large scale projects. I don't think that's how you should. Well, that's not how we're using Kickstarter anyways. Is not as like the full funding. It's just that piece of cash you need to prove the concept, and that you can go get additional funding through various sources after that.
Right. So if it's not too intimate a detail, I mean, how much did Jotun actually have as a budget?
Yeah, Jotun in like real dollars, like, this is not necessarily what we actually spent on the game, but in real dollars with marketing and shows and everything, is about a $500,000 game. Like, this is like actual. If you're looking at the actual money spending, paying actual salaries and actual costs, it's about a $500,000 game.
Wow. So speaking of the game, now that we have bored the majority of people that don't care about the business aspect, you know, kind of like I do, let's get into the game proper. Again, it's essentially, would you say this is a top-down perspective, isometric? I mean, I love everything about the game. Honestly, the music, the art. Why did you go with this kind of format for it?
First of all, thanks. Then yeah, it's definitely a top-down perspective. It's very, very cheated. Sometimes the perspective gets kind of weird, honestly. But the way we did it is that because everything's hand drawn, all the characters are drawn from the top. So, like, within our actual sprite sheets, it's like you had like a camera looking down at it. So that's what kind of gives the impression, and then the backgrounds and everything have to sort of make sense. But it's a very flat perspective, and it's definitely yeah. That's the just the way things are drawn is what gives it its perspective.
And me personally, I was always a fan of Shadow of the Colossus on PlayStation. This really gave me that vibe, in the fact that you had to go out, you actually had to summon these titans essentially, and you then had to kill them. So My first question is, do you mind that kind of comparison? I mean, are there any other games that kind of inspired you to go with this particular setup?
No, I don't mind it at all. I mean, obviously, Shadow of the Colossus is a huge inspiration for the game. That feeling of scale is something we definitely wanted to replicate, and that's one of the main influences for the game. The other, like, kind of two influences that we pitched during Kickstarter were the journey's feeling of exploration. You know, that mood, the music, um, and the old Legend of Zelda for that top-down perspective and kind of like simple controls, easy to understand, easy to go through type of gameplay.
So is this your particular favorite type of genre, or this kind of epic storyline, this hack and slash type of thing?
I definitely like epic things. That's definitely right up my alley. I mean, I love big music, big moments, big emotions like that. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And obviously, as you mentioned, I think we were live at the time when I asked that, but I can't really be sure with some technical difficulties. But you already mentioned that you are a huge history buff. You went with Norse mythology on this one. Were there any moments where you're thinking maybe this is a little too deep for some gamers? I mean, I'm not saying all gamers don't care, but it was there any point where you thought, wow, this is kind of convoluted, people are going to have trouble with this?
Well, when you get into the stories and it would have been hard to bring in the stories one per one, and that was actually one of our challenges, as how to bring the mythology in without like putting a lot of text that you had to read, and you know, just because we could have just put the actual myths, like the poetic eddas, in the game somehow or whatever. But we wanted Jotun to be kind of like a gateway towards those texts and not really like a direct representation. Obviously, we've taken some creative liberties as well, like with the purgatory and stuff like that. There's no purgatory in Norse mythology. But the goal was really then to integrate the mythology into the level design, like you know, for example, one of the levels called the Roots of Yggdrasil, where you slide down the roots, and then at the end you see Nidhogg, the dragon. Well, we're not really telling you the story. You're kind of just like playing through the story. You're on the Roots of Yggdrasil, which is the world tree that connects the 9 worlds in the mythology, and then you kind of see this giant dragon in the background, and the camera zooms out, and it's like this cool moment. But we try not to like shove it down people's throats, but also at the same time, because like the Jotun is all about Norse mythology. We wanted to kind of to make it feel like you're in this Norse myth more than actually like reading through the Norse myths.
Okay. As of late, there's I'll try not to like barrel through this topic, but you chose to go with a female protagonist, whereas it's been said that there are apparently very few of them. And first off, why did you opt to go with a female protagonist? Do you think that the game would have done as well with a male? Would the story have been as good with a male protagonist, or was the plot kind of more tailored toward her story? Which came first, the character or the actual plot?
That's a tough question. I'm not sure which came first. Actually, the Thora's design is all our art director's work. We wanted to go with a female protagonist because it's different, and we also just wanted to make a badass Viking warrior. That was like the main goal with Thora, was to have a badass Viking who can face off against the Jotun giants that are hundreds of times her size. So her axe is huge. I mean, she's thick, she's strong, she's ready for action. So that was the goal, just to make a badass Viking.
Well, it definitely worked out on that one. And when the game released, it's got a very positive rating on Steam as of late. As far as I know, it's still very positive. There are some complaints that people had, though. They're weird, though, to me. The complaints are kind of all over the board. I don't know if you've seen a lot of them, but
Yeah,
some people are saying that the bosses are difficult. Some people are saying they're easy. Some say that they're slow pacing to the point of plotting, was the official phrase. Some people were saying the camera angles were too close or too far. And some people were definitely complaining about laggy battle controls. Does it seem a little weird when the issues are kind of all over the board, but there are a lot of people having kind of the same ones?
Yeah, I mean, we're first of all, we're super happy with the response overall. Like you said, I think we're at 93% positive on Steam right now. We got 8 on 10 from IGN, 8 on 10 from GameSpot. That being said, we know the game isn't perfect. Like because of our insane time constraints and because of all of our constraints, we shipped the game that we could as best as we could in the time frame we had, which means that yeah, we know that there are some issues. I think the main thing is kind of a divisive issue in a lot of people. For a lot of people, some people really like the fact that it's very slow paced for the exploration, and some people really like that. So it was kind of hard. It's kind of a hard decision for us. It kind of comes back to the initial creative vision for the game, and I think that's okay. Like we're not going to make a game for everyone, and some people come in really expecting like a Dark Souls where you have like combat all the time and stuff like that. And then when they get to the puzzle levels or the exploration levels, they're kind of let down by that because it's not quite what they were expecting. And in terms of game feel and stuff like that, we worked really hard with people, a lot of our Kickstarter backers playing the game, getting feedback from the alpha onwards. We made a lot of tweaks. We made Thora faster. We zoomed the camera out a little bit from the default view. We kind of made her feel a bit faster, but at the same time, we didn't want to lose that feeling of scale, like that you get when the camera zooms out. And because of when the camera zooms out, that just makes it look like your character is a lot slower because you have a lot more screen to traverse. While because you're so zoomed out, so that makes it feel slower. But if we'd sped the character up too much, then it makes the boss fights easier. You kind of lose that feeling of scale a little bit, and you lose the heaviness of the attacks if you speed them up too much, right? Like we really want to feel like a big, heavy, two-handed attack. So, I mean, it was definitely a balance, and I think we mostly got it right. And yeah, I mean, I think. Of course, the game isn't going to be for everyone. Some people are going to find it too slow. Some people won't like the exploration. But I mean, hey, what can we do about it at this point? We're still updating the game with some fixes and stuff. We'll be putting in Steam achievements, trading cards, and cloud saves. And eventually, one of our Kickstarter goals, stretch goals, was New Game Plus. So eventually, that'll come out as well. And we're working on console versions. So we're trying to fix what we can fix while staying true to the creative vision. Like we're not going to add in a bunch of enemies all over the place to make it feel like less empty and all that. I think that's maybe like one of the limitations of the game. If you don't like a slower paced, like walking type game in between the boss fights, then yeah, you're definitely going to be. It's not for everyone.
Yeah, me personally, I kind of like the fact that there's a lot of open expanses. It makes it feel like you are on yourself, getting attacked at every which way. It's not like Diablo, right? It's not like even Dark Souls. You're not supposed to get mobbed by things. Your end goal is to reach each one of these titans, summon them, kill them, and that's part of the journey. So do you think that this? Do you think that the adding of extra characters or enemies that would detract from the story? Correct.
Possibly. I mean, maybe. Who knows really at this point? Like maybe if we'd had more action, maybe the game would have been better. But at the same time, like we tested the game's idea, the game's premise on Kickstarter, and that's what we went with at that point. Like we're happy with it. We don't have any regrets, and we're happy with the experience it gave. Like it's that pacing is I think one of the core parts of the game. The pacing between the super slow, empty exploration and the super intense boss fights. Like if we made the exploration levels more intense, then you wouldn't have as much of a gap between them, right? Like you wouldn't feel that huge jump. You wouldn't have that moment, which is the most important moment in Jotun. Is when you get to the Jotun, you attack him or her, and he comes out of the ground, and the camera zooms out, and the music starts. That's like the most important part of the game, right there. That's like the core feeling of like, holy shit, what have I done? This was a terrible mistake. I should not be fighting this monster. This is a bad idea. So it kind of ties into that too, like that difference in pacing helps bring out that contrast and helps make that moment a lot more epic.
Were there any aspects, just to jump back for a second, with the community? How has the community experience been? I mean, when you were doing the Kickstarter, and even now that it's released on Steam, are there any aspects that people have said, "Hey, maybe you should add this in"? You know, are there any ideas that have been thrown at you guys where you think, "Huh, yeah, that's not bad."
Yeah, definitely. We're always on the forums. We're always listening to all our messages and everything, getting the feedback and trying to integrate that as much as possible. Obviously, some things, like I said, are just not possible for us to do at this point. But yeah, we're keeping our ear to the ground, especially with consoles coming up. We want to try and address the problems people have with the game as much as we can, and make the best experience possible.
Are there is there anything that didn't make it into the game, just because of time constraints or finances or something like that? Is there anything that you would absolutely love to have in there?
Not something I'd absolutely love to have in there, but one of the things we pitched during Kickstarter was randomly generated exploration levels.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the features that we pitched during Kickstarter. And as soon as Alex, our programmer after Kickstarter, came on board, he was like, "No, we're not doing that. That's just not happening. This is a terrible idea." And obviously, we talked about it, and we talked to our backers about it as well. And we asked, "Hey, do you prefer like handcrafted levels, or like randomly more replayable levels?" And by far, people preferred the hand drawn, the handcrafted levels. So we went with that. At the same time, too, it was a feature that didn't really make sense in the context of a single player narrative experience, that wasn't a hack and slash and wasn't something that was meant to be played over and over and over. So at that point, if you're investing into a system to play the game over and over and over, but the core experience is not that, then you're kind of wasting your time.
Now, you mentioned the idea of doing a new game plus, and that didn't quite make it for the Kickstarter. Is that something we might see in the future?
Oh yeah,
Chance?
absolutely. We because it was a stretch goal, we felt comfortable, and we talked again to our backers, and we said, do you mind if we deliver this post launch?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and people, they said, focus on the game, let's do it. So right now we're working on it. We don't exactly have an exact timeline for it yet. It's possible that we release it at the same time as consoles, just because of work schedules and stuff like that, and kind of staggering everything and getting the update out and all that. But yeah, we're definitely working on it. It's definitely coming out.
Okay. So now that the game is released, you can have that sort of sigh of relief for about 0.2 seconds. Now you're right back into it. What's next for Thunder Lotus? Are you guys going to be still working on? All right, since somebody asked, is it Jotun or Jotun? How is it actually pronounced?
This is the oldest question we've gotten.
Yeah.
It always comes back. The actual pronunciation is Jotun, and in Norway it's actually Jotun, but we say, or I say Jotun, because I don't want people searching for Yotun on Steam. I want people searching for Jotun on Steam.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a disagreement, let's say, yesterday when we were talking about it. And of course, one of the fellows on the team is French, so he said, no, that's not how it's pronounced. So good that it's cleared out, but I can totally understand, because then people would be searching for the wrong thing.
Yeah, so it's kind of a boring reason, but
but getting back to it, I mean, what is the future like for Thunder Lotus games? I mean, obviously, Jotun is out there, or Jotun. It's out there. What's next?
Yeah, so we're still working on Jotun. We're working on the Steam achievements, trading cards, cloud saves right now, and the console versions will be coming in 2016, along with New Game Plus, most likely. For New Game Plus, we're going to do something a bit different in terms of, like, it's not just going to be like play the game again harder. We're going to do like a specific, probably boss rush mode or something like that. But yeah, after that, we're like I said, our goal is to create a sustainable studio. That's our goal. That's our number one goal. And to do that, we need to keep making our own IP, to keep making awesome games, and to build on what we've done as well. Like I said, like we're going we're going back to Kickstarter for sure at some point.
Okay.
And we're hoping that everyone who supported us the first time around are going to support us the second time around, and that more people come on board as well. So yeah, I mean, it's building a name for ourselves, building a brand, building the studio, building a community, getting the feedback, being better, making better games, delivering more value, and that's the kind of thing that we want to do.
Okay. So we had a couple of questions down the chat. The first one I think we already nailed, but exactly how long from concept to completion? How long did it actually take to make the game?
So I quit my job in January 2014. At that point, the only thing I had was I knew I wanted to put an indie PC game on Kickstarter, had nothing else. And the game released on September 29th of this year. So about a year and 9 months.
Wow. And how much of a rush was it for you to get all that press on the game? I mean, Kickstarter comes with press anyway, so of course a whole bunch of people are going to want to find out, but things like IGN and GameSpot and us at OP Noobs, we are actually obviously talking to you right now. So how much of a head rush was that, having to do the press tour type thing?
Prep marketing and press, and for us is extremely important, and we put a lot of hours, a lot of time. Bruno on our team, he only does marketing. He does all the community management, all the PR, all the outreach and everything. So we strongly believe that you can have the best game in the world, but if no one knows about it, then it doesn't matter. Like, no one's going to buy it. So we very much believe in that, and we very much focus on marketing and on getting the word out as much as possible. It's extremely important for us.
Bless you. So that being said, with the graphic style, we already talked about it all. It's all hand drawn. I mean, what was the inspiration for that? I mean, you can see little bits and pieces of the highest of high quality animated films out there in the game. Was there a specific inspiration on those?
Yeah, well, we're inspired obviously by the Disney Renaissance movies, like The Lion King, stuff like that, and Studio Ghibli as well. Kind of the classics.
Yeah.
These are our artists watch. The fans of anime and stuff like that as well. But really, just the craft of the artist, I think, is what really comes out in this type of animation, in this type of art style. Like, every line you see has been put there, and it gives like a direct communication line between the artist and the player, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, and again, like I said, the music, the art, everything just kind of comes together in this wonderful little ball of fantastic. It absolutely did remind me of Shadow of the Colossus. I definitely see where you're talking about with Legend of Zelda. Do you ever have the intention of doing something similar like this with other world histories, other mythologies?
It's definitely on the table. I mean, we're like I said, like we're focusing on Jotun right now, but we'll be starting pre-production on a new game right at the start of next year. So we're in the process right now of kind of figuring out what the plan is.
Nice. Are you going to do more in the Norse mythology? Do you ever intend on visiting this again, or is it basically this is it?
We would love to do Jotun 2. We would love to keep going in this universe. It remains to be seen if we do that next, or if we do something else. We really don't have anything to announce at this point, but we would definitely love to come back to this universe.
Are there any specific game genres that you'd actually kind of like to tackle? I mean, you've done the adventure bit here, but is there a specific type that you kind of enjoy that you think, yeah, I want to do that?
Yeah, there are many different options. Obviously, we all have like our favorite types of games and stuff like that. For us, the big coming up with what the project should be, or what your game should be, is a very difficult process, and it's something that takes time. You have to we're evaluating primarily what the market is telling us, like what people thought of Jotun, what people liked about Jotun, what people didn't like about Jotun, taking that into consideration. The next thing we take into consideration is what we want to do as a team, what kind of games the team members, the artists want to work on, the programmer wants to work on, I want to work on. The other thing is financial considerations too, like the scope of the game. How big a scope do we want to go? How much of an investment can we afford to make on the game? And especially in relation to how well the sales are after that. Like once the game is live, we don't want to invest to do a game too big in scope for the return that we can expect, because like I said, it's kind of business talk, but it comes back to building a sustainable studio.
Okay. Well, we're just about out of time, but if you did have a $200 million budget, if financial constraints weren't there, the shackles were off, what kind of game would you do?
I don't know, probably $200 million budget games.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. Let's see if there's any other questions. No, it looks like no. It's actually already released. Somebody asked, "Isn't it coming out to beta soon?" No, it's actually there now. Go to Steam. It is $14.99. It is a fantastic game. It is a gorgeous game. And Will, thank you for joining us. Any last words?
Thank you so much for having us on the stream. Jotun is available on Steam for Windows, Mac, and Linux, like you said, $14.99, and will be coming to consoles in 2016.
Will, thanks so much for joining us today. And if anybody wants to see the review that we will have of this game soon enough, you can check it out on opnoobs.com. That being said, Will, thank you for coming. I'm going to keep saying it because I really do appreciate the game, and I look forward to seeing more in the future. And actually, as I understand, the review's already up, so why am I even saying that? I don't read the reviews on the games because I haven't played it yet. I'd much rather talk to the dev, and then I'll play the heck out of it. And that's exactly what I intend to do now. So, again, Will, thank you for joining us. For everybody at OP Noobs, thanks for coming, people.